Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For this tutorial, I'm going to focus on Python for beginners. Python is a very powerful general purpose programming language, meaning that it can be used to create a variety of programs. You can use Python for web development, software automated tasks, data analysis, and so on. To use Python, there are several different IDEs that can be recommended by a lot of developers to run your Python program. You can use Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code. You can use Idle. You can use Vim or VI if you want to run it on Linux. You can also use PyCharm. You have Sublime Text. So you have a whole array of IDEs you can use to write your Python code. However, I prefer, or my favorite to write Python on is Linux or PyCharm. So if you're using a Mac computer, you can run Python right from your terminal. You only need two pieces of software. You need to download Java and Java Runtime. To get Java or Java Runtime, you go to Google and you type in Java Runtime. You will get a list of websites that provide Java Runtime. So once you click on the links, it will take you to this page. When you get to this page, you would have to click your environment or which OS you are using. You can click on the instruction tab. It will give you step-by-step instructions on how to put Java Runtime on your system. So once you have Java downloaded to your system and you open up terminal, you would create a Python file. So you would use the command touch, and you would give your script or your file a name. So I'm going to say touch pytest and .py. Just make sure when you are creating your file, it ends with a .py. And then you hit enter. Once you create your file, you would have to give yourself execute permission. So you would say chmod 755 and the name of the file. So it's pytest.py. And then we're going to use VI as a text editor. So once we get inside of VI, we're going to write the shebang. And the shebang for Python will be #!usr/bin/python3. We're going to write a simple print statement. We're going to say print hello world. We're going to keep it tradition. And once you're finished, you're going to hit escape, :WQ to save and quit. And then we're going to run the file using ./pytest.py, and we hit enter and we get back the code that is inside of the Python file. This way is perfectly fine if you're using a Mac. However, I'm going to use a different text editor or a different IDE called PyCharm. And the reason why I'm going to use PyCharm because PyCharm is universal on all platforms. If someone that is using a Windows computer cannot really follow me if I'm doing it on Linux. So to download PyCharm, you go over to Google and you type in PyCharm. And the first link that comes up, you would want to click on it, which is jetbrains.com. Once you get to this link, the download is pretty straightforward. Just click the download button and you will be set. Once you open up the PyCharm IDE, you will get to this page. So on your left, you have your projects, customization, plugins, and if you want to know about PyCharm, you would click on the learn button. And inside of the main page, you can open an existing file, or you can get it from VCS, or you can create a new project. Being as it's a beginner tutorial, we are going to click on new project. And once you click on new project, you will get to this page. Name your project whatever you want to name your project. So for this one, I'm going to name it Python tutorial. Leave the settings as how it is, and then you click on create. Once you click create, you will get to this main page. On the left is where your projects is located, and if you click the down arrow, you will see several folders in here. To create a new file inside of your project folder, left click on the folder, and then you're going to hover over the new button or the new column. Then you would go down to Python file, click on Python file, and you give your file a name. So we're going to name this file basic part 1, and then you hit enter. And once you finish creating the file, you would see it shows up inside of your project folder. So on the left, you can see where my mouse is hovering over is your basic part1.py. Above on the right hand side, you have your run button, your debug button, and your search. Also, you have your settings. The two main buttons you will be using the most is the run and the debug button. To run your code, you have to press the green run button once you write your code inside of the text editor. So this is your main editor here, where the line is blinking, and that's where you would write all of your Python code. The first thing I'm going to start off with is comments, and comment starts with a hash or the pound symbol. You use comment to explain what your code is doing, or if you want to stop execution for any type of code in your program, you can use the comment to do that. So to write a comment in your code, you use the hash symbol to give a space, and then you write your comment. So I'm going to say this line is a comment. If I run the program, nothing will show up at the bottom. The next thing in Python that you need to know is the print function. It's also called the standard output, or std out. The print function allows you to print data to your monitor screen. So to use the print function, you use the keyword print. Instead of the curly brackets, that's where you write your statement to print. So instead of the double quotes, we're going to say hello viewers, and we're going to put our new line. Once we are finished, we're going to click on the green run button, and we get hello viewers printed. The next topic I want to get into is variables. So think of variables as a container or as a cup that holds a specific data or holds information. Variables is nothing but a namespace in your computer's memory. When you are using variables in Python, there is one rule that every programmer should follow. You should give your variable meaningful names. For example, if you want to store someone's age, you name your variable age instead of X. If you want to store someone's name, you name your variable name, or John's name or Sally's name, instead of Y or Z. That way, whenever any other programmer is looking at your code, they will know exactly what information that variable is supposed to store. So to use variable in Python, you just give your variable a name. So I'm going to name my variable age, and then you assign a value to the variable. And to assign a value to your variable, you have to use the equal symbol. And the equal symbol means assign whatever is on the right to whatever is on the left. So I'm going to assign my age variable 21. And that's all. I'm going to create another variable, and I'm going to call my variable name, and I'm going to use the equal sign, and I'm going to assign Sally to the name variable. Now, if you pay close attention, the age variable at number 2 holds a number, and any variable that holds a number is called an integer variable, and integers are whole numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Name hold a string. In other programming language like C, it will be a character string. Python does not have characters. Python have something called str, or string. We're going to get into data type in just a minute, but Python does not have characters, they have string. So the name variable holds a string, and the string is called Sally. I can also create another variable, and I'm going to call it tax, and I'm going to assign this tax to 10.7. Now this tax variable inside of Python now is stored as a float. In Python, once you assign a value to your variable, that's when the variable is created. If you want to print the value of your variable, you can go ahead and use the print function. You can use the keyword print, and then you want open and closing brackets, and inside of the open and closing brackets, that's where you can print your variable. So we can say age, and you will click on the green run button, and the number will be printed to the screen. So there are some rules when it comes to naming your variable other than giving your variable meaningful names. In Python, you cannot start your variable with a number. So you cannot say one age, that will be an error. You also cannot use specific symbol like $. Hash will comment the variable out. You cannot start with an ampersand, bracket. So any of those little symbols on your keyboard, you cannot use it to begin with your variable name. However, you can start your variable with underscore. You also cannot end your variable with some symbols. You can end your variable with an underscore as well. You cannot end your variable with the at symbol with an exclamation mark. You cannot end it with a star or any of those symbols. If you're coming from C, C++, Java, or JavaScript, you will be a little bit familiar with naming variables. And for those other programming languages that I just mentioned, you may have to start your variable with a keyword. For example, you would have to say int age, and that is very much for C or C++. In JavaScript, you have let or var. Python, you do not start your variables with any of those keywords. The compiler is very smart enough to pick up on what type of value is being assigned to that variable. So right away, when you create a variable and you assign a value, Python knows that that value is an integer or that value is a string. You can also put keywords or sentences in the print statement to print the value. You do not, however, enclose your variable in double quotes. For example, if you do something like this, it will print the keyword age. So it will just print age. It will not print the value because it's enclosed in double quotes. And whatever is enclosed in double quotes in Python is classified as a string. So if you want to print just the variable by itself, you do not put double quotes. However, if you want to print a string together with your variable, you can do that. So if you're using two different variables, you have to separate them with a comma, and we can use the double quotes. We can say age is, and then we have to end the string with a double quote, and we have to use the comma. Inside of the name variable, we stored the name Sally, and inside of the age variable, we stored the number 21. So if I run this, I will get back Sally age is 21. You can also take input from the user as well using the input function. And to use the input function, so we can say enter your name, and using the input statement, the person can enter their name. You can use the input statement inside of the print function. So if we remove the name and we take the input statement and put it inside of the print function, and we're going to use a comma, build and run. I'm going to enter my name. So I'm going to say Nikki, and I'm going to hit enter, and it says Nikki age is 21. Personally, I do not like this style. What I prefer doing, because I already have a name variable and I want to take the name from the user, so I'm going to remove the string that I assigned to the name variable, and I'm going to use the name variable inside of the print function. This is the way I recommend to do it. It will be a lot more easier for someone to read, or for you to read or remember. So if I run the program using the run button, I can enter my name. So I can say Nikki, and I hit enter, and I get back Nikki age is 21. And that's all for this basic part. Now let's go on to data types. And we have several different data types in Python. Now in Python, we use data types to cast different values into a different type. For example, if I have the number 21 and I want to cast 21 into a string, I can use the data type for that. We have integer, and integer is a whole number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and upwards. And to declare an integer, you would just declare a variable and you assign a whole number to that variable. So we're going to assign the number 19 to my number variable. Then if you want to print the data type, there is a function called type. And inside of the print function, you can use the type function to see your data type of a specific variable. You write the keyword type, And inside of the parameters for the type function, you would put the variable name. So the variable we're trying to see the data type for is the number variable. And then I'm going to press the run button, and it brings back the result class int. You also have strings, so I can see something like name equals to John. I would want to find the data type for name, and if I click on the run button, the results will be class str, and str in Python means string. You also have float, so we can say tax equals to 13.9, and then I'm going to print the data type for the tax variable, and it is a float. So in Python, you do have the ability to write programs using imaginary numbers, and imaginary numbers are mostly used in math, or if you are working in the electromagnetic field. You can also use imaginary numbers if you are working with electric currents. In math, you have a real number and an imaginary number, and the imaginary number is the second part and the real number is the first part. And if my mind serves me right, the first part, most people call it I, which is the real number, and the imaginary part is called J. So you have two different data. Working with imaginary numbers, in Python they are called complex numbers, or even in math they are called complex numbers. And to use complex numbers in Python, can use a complex data type. So for example, I can name my variable complex num, and I'm going to assign the value to complex num 1 and j. And inside of the type function, I'm going to print the data type for my complex num variable. And if I hit run, then the data type is complex. You also have list, and list in Python is like an array. For example, I have a list and I'm going to call this fruits. I'm going to put it in square brackets. So I'm going to say apples. I'm going to say apples, grapes, pears. If I print my fruits variable, it will tell me that it's a list. If you want to print a specific fruit, you can do that as well. So let's print fruit 1, and that should give us back grapes. If we print it, we get back grapes. Remember, when you are working with any programming language, once you're working with an array, your element starts from 0. So it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So if you want to print apple, you would use element 0. Pears, you would print element 2. So that's how lists work in Python. You also have the data type tuple, and a tuple is a little bit different from a list. When your data type is a mutable type, you are allowed to modify it. Whereas when it's a tuple, you are not allowed to do any type of modification. It's just like in C or C++ when you have a const variable cannot be modified. Same as with a tuple in Python, it cannot be modified. And to use a tuple, instead of the square brackets is used for list, and tuples use parentheses. If we use the type function to bring back the data type of the fruits, we would see that it's now a tuple. We also have Boolean, and a Boolean variable denotes whether a statement is or a value is true or false. So to use a bool variable, you can say red equals to true, and if we print the data type for our red variable, and if we click on the run button, it is a bool. You also have set data type in Python, and the set data type is used to store related data. You cannot modify the data once it is stored. So to create a set variable, you have to use the curly brackets or the curly braces, and inside of the curly braces, that's where you give your list. So we can say John, Mike, and Paul. If I use the print function and I want to check the data type for my stew variable, and I hit enter, I get back a set. You also have a dictionary, and a dictionary is used to store key value pairs. I created a set of student, and to create a dictionary, you have to use the colon. You can assign a value to that specific name or to that specific key. So I can remove Mike, so I can say John's, and his student ID will be 21. And I can also go with Mike, and I can say Mike's student ID is 42. And I can also go with Paul, and I can say Paul's student ID is 76. And if I print the data type for my stu variable now, it is a dictionary. So I'm going to print the values inside of the dictionary using the print function. So I'm going to print stu. If I run it, I get back all of the values inside of the stu dictionary and the data type.